What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of What If You Could. And we know that the show is about possibilities and how you can transform and do things. And I have a wonderful guest who is just amazing with all that, her transformativeness and all this. So, Luanne Horobin, how are you, Luanne?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks. I'm happy to be here. It's an honor to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, this is gonna be fun. Like I said when we chatted, I love super smart people, and you are, so that always makes my day better. And so, if it's okay with you, I'm going to read the bio you sent, and then we'll get started.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. Okay. My guest today again is Luanne Horobin. Luanne is a native Albertan, one of 1,700 ICF master coaches, executive and leadership coach, career accelerator, and transformational consultant. Work ethic and community were key values instilled in early childhood for Luanne when she was on the farm that have been a lifelong guiding principle. Yet, when facing life and career transitions, a pivotal point was learning how to get what and where you want. And that's not always about working hard with less stress. As an avid learner, books, programs, and learning from others were staples in life, but gave modest results compared to the mindset. Luann guides executives, business leaders, and high performers to use mindset to achieve their ambitions much quicker. Mindset methods can save years of stress, trial and error in mere hours. Luann's deep dive into the neuroscience of transformation led her to a custom formula of career and transformation coaching for life altering breakthroughs in leadership presence, reliability, relationships, and meaningful work beyond one's upper limits. New mindset programs bring ambitions to life to be your best self, make better decisions, and put the zest in life without stress. I love that line. Put the zest in life without stress. Outside of work, Luann loves being a mom, dog grandma, pickleball, dancing, running, nature, walking, family, and friends. Well, that's all good stuff. That's all good stuff. Well, thank you again, Luann. I mean, there's so much here in your bio. I spent a ton of time on your website. Your website's got so much stuff there. Um, going back to the farm and stuff, at what point in your life did you decide that you were going to follow this amazing path?
And well, I probably didn't take the direct route, you could say. I started, being raised on the farm. I just led me to really be very, I guess, progressive and achievement oriented, like at a really early age. And so that was just sort of it was just a natural thing for me. Like I was like air. I wouldn't have known anything different. And so I was quite happily moving along my career path and in healthcare, and I was in middle management and administration, and really enjoying it. And then there was a massive restructure where I was working with that restructure and wasn't expecting to get a package. And when I did, and at the time I was in, a lot of personal change as well. And so I just really needed to figure out what I was doing really quickly. And I really didn't know, like really had no idea that I was going to be shifting this, but I loved my work. I just kind of wanted to move into try it in different industries, but wasn't really sure how I was going to do that. So I kind of took the indirect path, but as I was figuring out what my next change was, I ended up being up in outplacement. I'll spare all the steps in that, but I ended up being up in outplacement. And as I was going through that process, I was just recognizing that it just seemed like I was working really hard for what seemed like a very slow progression. And it seemed like it was a lot of work. Let's put it this way. The scale of effort in was not reflective of results out. Was definitely out of balance. And one of the things that we always talked about at home was my dad would ask me, well, how are you thinking about this? And so I was asking myself, like, how am I thinking about this? That is taking me kind of like, feels like the long way. It felt like I was trying to just scale a huge mountain, or probably literally in flip-flops. That's how I felt. And so I was really wondering about it. And I started looking at some coach, like I had been, getting outside support for a lot of the things that I was going through at that time. And I wanted to look at, I thought there had to be another way, because this was just kind of a lot of work. And I started looking into coaching, and that led me into understanding mindset. And when I started working and studying the subconscious mind, I thought, holy smokes, I can really figure out, I can really recognize myself in some of these patterns, and just recognizing some of the beliefs I had, which in lots of ways could be helpful, but not always, because we kind of grow out of them. So being raised on the farm, we definitely had a work ethic. And when, it's like when it's seeding time, you seed and you don't like work 9 to 5 hours. And when it's harvest time, you definitely don't work 9 to 5 hours. So I was quite accustomed to that. And I didn't mind it. But then we always took our breaks. We had downtime after that. So we kind of went full on, and then not so much. But I didn't really, so was able to do the full on, but I also wasn't as strategic, I guess, or I wasn't as thoughtful in my approach. And I could see how I had all these beliefs that it was just going to be hard work, and that if you were going to, that basically was the root of everything. And I thought, no, actually, it's working smarter, which my dad was very much an advocate of, was working smarter. But that's not really how I embraced it. And so as I started recognizing, oh, wow, do I ever have a lot of these patterns? But, until you see them, I've often said you can't change something that you can't see, because I was in like autopilot, just like, we often are when beliefs are running us. We're in like autopilot. It's not like it's not like there was a big sign that says, by the way, I'm actually a limiting belief, and I'm going to make you work really hard
Did you,
before you
man,
get my new results.
did you say that did you take, did you take coaching, or did you go into study coaching? Did you, well,
No, I started coaching.
so you
I no,
started
I first
coaching
of
other
all,
people? Yeah.
yes, I started coaching people. It was in that training that I started really, really questioning my mind, like what the mindset and the subconscious mind. And I was just intrigued by what's the brain science behind this? Like how do our brains do these things? And because if they can do it one way, they can do it another way. If you can learn something, you can unlearn it.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking, I just want to know this, because I actually don't want to be doing this sort of what felt like the gerbil wheel too much longer. So I started studying it. The more I studied it, the more I saw what I was doing. The more I was able to really correct what I was doing. And it's like, it was just like a big shift, where things started working out, and definitely I wasn't, the ratio of effort in to effort out changed
Yeah.
was much more balanced. And
Is
uh,
that where that one line comes in? Put the zest in life without the stress. Is that where
yes,
that's where that
yes,
I
you
love
can
that
have
line.
the zest, and that's what I it doesn't take stress. You don't always have to take this stressful path to get to the zest in life. But I was definitely on this stressful path at that particular time. But it was actually, when I look back, I'm very grateful for it also, because it really nudged me to learn and expand and grow in a way that if I had just stayed where I was, which I often look back and I think, I could have stayed where I was, because I really didn't have I didn't have any intention of moving, because I really did enjoy my work. But this is 1,000% more than how I enjoyed my work in healthcare. Like this is like natural, I don't know, natural work to me. This is not really work, if
The
I
now
could say it that way.
the healthcare in Canada is different than here, right? So when you're
Yes.
doing the healthcare system, everyone's covered, right? You don't it's just paid in your property taxes or your income taxes, or is everyone covered under healthcare, right, in
Well,
Canada?
everyone has, what is there's a fundamental amount of healthcare that is covered.
Hmm.
And probably it's covered from many different sources.
Okay. Okay.
And
So when
but
you
then we can have additional coverage as well.
pay for the extra. So when you went into coaching though, I mean initially, because I mean, reading your bio and going on your website, there's some really deep, awesome stuff there. I mean, you couldn't have just started there out the gate, right? I mean, you had to must narrow your technique and hone in because you seem to
Oh,
work a lot of
yes,
different modalities
yes, I
and
do
stuff.
have several modalities. Yes, so once I started it, that's why I say I don't know. I could probably be a nerd or a fanatic. My head's always in this stuff, and my head is always in coaching and transformation. It's always there because it's so fascinating, and I don't know that I would ever stop learning, because every time I learn something, then I find something more that I'm going to learn, and then I find something more that I'm going to learn.
I love
So it's
that.
constantly evolving. And this is why it's not really, it isn't really work. I understand the process of transformation, and all of this learning and study and practice has actually really helped to refine it, so that I can really recognize where someone is coming from, and also where they're coming from and how they want to get to where they want to go, type of thing.
I love this line, one of the lines from your website, which is your ambitions are too important to take a back seat during the best years of your life, and your best years are now.
Yes.
Love that line. I mean, I love that. So, and you talk about doing things quickly. So when you're doing your training and your coaching, this isn't like throw someone on the couch for 10 years and every
Oh,
Thursday and hope
no,
it
no,
works
no,
out.
no. No, no, and this has evolved. Like, this has definitely evolved, but I decided that when I wanted to start it, I've always liked to I want to have a foundation of knowledge, and I want a foundation of experience, because I'm working with someone who's really wanting to get somewhere, and to I want to help them get there. I don't want to be finding myself coming up short, type of thing. And I don't want them to come up short. I actually want them to get where they want. Like, I really totally believe that. And I do believe that the best time is now, because when I look back for the obstacles, which to me, I think obstacles are really they just become bridges, because they push us into something that we probably wouldn't have gone into otherwise. So yeah, I started with the Coaches Training Institute, several designations and coaches with that, and coaching courses with that. But I've taken different modalities, and I've also worked with the subconscious mind in different modalities as well. And I'd like to become certified in them, because I find that I want that depth of knowledge, and I want to actually be able to help others understand it. So basically, when I work with someone, I actually want to give them the tools, so they don't have to just say it's kind of like it's like showing someone how to fish, not just doing the fishing for them, like not just coming in, let's say, for example, and I'm not criticizing anyone in this particular statement, but for myself, I don't want them to just come and take away something, but then find themselves in another situation where they need to um, access me. I actually want them to be fully feeling like, wow, it's kind of like I've often said, I take those situations of complexity and uncertainty and feel like, okay, I'm on it. Or or like Clint Eastwood used to say, make my day, right?
Right.
Yes, I want them to feel like that. So I like to help people understand how to use those kinds of tools to be able to be in that place of, that really living the life that they want with the capacity that they want.
You have, like I said, a number of different modalities and a number of different programs that you train with and work on based on different people. Do you ever have people come to you with one thing, like executives wants to come with something, and you're like, I think you might, why don't we start with this program and then work our way there? Or do people just
Mhm.
go right into whatever program you have available to them?
Well, I do customize my programs because my programs include both individual and group coaching. So the individual part is very customized. It's like I'm looking at specifically what is your path and where is it you're going. And that is a customized approach for sure. And yes, I look at what is it the person wants and sort of where are they at? That's the biggest thing. Where they're at kind of determines how we go forward.
I would imagine, because like you did say a little bit earlier, sometimes you just need to, I don't like the term break someone down, but maybe sometimes you have to backtrack them a little bit. I mean, if this is a goal they want, you're like, well, guys, with the path you're going, you're not going to get there. So maybe let's reverse it a little bit and let's redirect you another bit.
Kind of reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Well, um, and sometimes that's true. So that's what I offer a free mindset alignment call. And that's basically what we talk about is sort of where are you at and where is it that you want to go and how do you see getting there? And sometimes that raises some significant questions that can have a person consider, well, will this work or will it be a different way? Or, you know, they'll come to conclusions. And then together we kind of figure out like what's the best, what feels like this works the best.
What is that call called? What was your call?
Oh,
The,
a
the
mindset alignment call.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. And so someone would be like, they got to your website or like they found you on LinkedIn or whatever, your Facebook, whatever. They'd see that and they'd contact you and say, you know what? I believe that Luanne will help me. I've got some goals. I'm not hitting them. You do that consultation, and through that, you kind of go, okay, I think you would fit in one of these modalities that I teach.
Hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
We look at what it is that they want and like what's the best way to get there?
Because I read all of them, and the one that I found really interesting was your neuro game changer masterclass.
Right.
Tell
Yeah.
me about that because that sounded super good.
Oh, I love that. Um, so in the Neuro Game Changer Masterclass, I, to sum it up in a nutshell, I work with vertical development. And there's horizontal development, which is where typically when we want to make a change, we often think we need more knowledge. So we go and we might read books or take courses or something. That's like we're kind of adding knowledge. However, I'm working with mindset in the programs that are running our overall behaviors, habits, decisions, and that type of thing. And so when we add knowledge, we're not really changing the programs that are running it, that are creating this stress about it. So we can add knowledge, but we can still be stressed about it. That's actually what I did in the first part of my career change was I was adding knowledge like crazy, but I had programs that were running that was telling me to just keep working. And it wasn't allowing me to be in a different space of different learning and different performance. I was performing a lot of the same things with new knowledge. And so the reason for this is because the subconscious mind is, well, the subconscious mind is like 90% of our mind, and it's so fast that the conscious mind that makes our decisions is 10%. So it's all, our decisions are always made through the filter of what we believe. And what we believe is how we see a situation. That's what gives it significance and meaning. And that's actually what causes us to make a decision, because we think it means something. So we make a certain decision, but that's actually through a filter that comes from our past. And sometimes those filters are more limiting than helpful. And
Yes.
so if those filters are in place, it doesn't matter how much knowledge I gain. I'll still be learning knowledge through those same filters. And I'll be like, I felt like I was the gerbil on the wheel, because I felt like I was gaining knowledge like crazy, but not really being able to integrate it differently, see the world differently. And so that's horizontal development. But vertical development actually looks at what's the programs that are creating that type of thinking, and that are creating that experience, that perspective, this, the meaning to your perspective, the meaning of this means something. The same situation is interpreted differently by each person based on their own beliefs about that situation. And so I'm working with vertical development, which is helping us change how we think, how we see things. So we actually have a new experience. So we actually do break habits. We create new habits. We create new practices. And this is how we're able to expand and evolve into a greater capacity. So when we're wanting a promotion or something, we're wanting a greater capacity, but we can't really work with that with it's kind of like you can't work with it with the old operating system. You need a new operating system. So gaining knowledge is kind of like adding an app to your phone. But vertical development
Right.
is like changing the whole operating system. So it's going to be a different speed, a whole different experience. That's actually what I'm working with. So that's what the Neuro Game Changers Masterclass is about. It's about several methodologies and tools, as well as an overall understanding of the subconscious mind, so that a person really can say, once they have these tools, they often say, it's just a whole new experience. And I would say that for myself, because as I learned more and more about it, there's one particular program that I completed, and I said, I didn't know how stressed I was until I wasn't. And that's so true, because we live with it every
Yeah.
day, right?
Yeah. It's interesting how much focus you put on stress. And to me, that's awesome because let's face it, stress is a massive killer. To use, I mean, a term. I mean, it kills our motivation, it kills our self-esteem, it kills our energy, it kills our health. I mean, stress is really a dangerous animal. So for you to focus so much, especially with executives or high-powered people or people who really have a lot of stuff going on, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, that's got to be huge relief physically for people.
And and that's a really great point and a really great question, because stress is the way we recognize something that's not going okay for us. Because we can't actually recognize the belief behind it. We'll only recognize how it impacts us. So it will impact us in some form of stress. Sometimes, there's all kinds of statistics, and the cost, for example, of drama and dysfunction at work, and time alone, let alone the productivity and performance costs, is huge. And yet, how does it show up to us? It shows up to us as stress. So stress has many root causes, but they're all based in our programs, which is really, really where I'm focusing. And it's fascinating, but it's also fascinating to see people sometimes, depending on what aspect they're working on, could be some form of communication, it could be habits, it could be trying to develop aspects of their leadership, that they're trying to evolve more into or grow more into. And so however it is showing up in terms of their goal, it still comes down to those programs and those beliefs, which
You
is
know,
really fascinating.
some some you go to some classes or some workshops or whatever, and they do that the wheel thing where it's like
Right.
sometimes they do
Yes.
6, sometimes they do 8, right? You know, and you put
Yes.
where you are on the scale for your life
Yes.
and see if your wheel's going to roll or not, right?
You see
Or
how bumpy
clunky,
your wheel is too.
right? And so, but when you really come down to it, I mean, there's other things, but really stress affects all of those. It affects your marriage, it affects your relationships, your finances, your job, the ability to work, your ability to function, ability to have sex. I mean, it really is such a key. So for you to focus on it that much, um, it is really awesome because as you're able to remove that from people, or at least or help them maybe redirect it, because you can't always remove stress, right? God, it could open up so much of your pathways to achieve more.
Yes, well, and like we talked about earlier, one of the most powerful ways of looking at it is once we understand how it's showing up, it's easier to get to the root. But one of a very powerful way of working with stress is through perspective. And in that, stress often has us think there's some way that we can't do something. And once we understand like how the subconscious mind works, we can actually shift that chemistry away from can't so that we're more likely to see what we can do. And so when people use these, they're easy to integrate practices, but they do require some explanation and some practice and some training actually to, to know how to be able to work with them. It's kind of like when people say, well, I'll manifest with visualization, but they don't totally understand the details of what's required for the visualization to be effective. It will be effective, but you can increase your chances of effectiveness a whole bunch when you when you know the details of how to do that. So
Yeah, you're I want to touch back on that neurology game changer, but just another line. I liked so many different lines and paragraphs and sentences in your website, that stick out to me. Because to me, it's the little things. We can all get bogged down in this whole big woo-woo stuff, but it's the little stuff. So, do you feel you were meant to be playing a bigger game in your life or career? Even very successful people who have the training, grit, maybe even have it all, get stuck at some point in their life. And we all do. I mean, I don't care. You're riding high in April, shot down in May, right? I mean, we all hit those walls, or maybe we like you said, you could be learning and learning and reading and learning, and you're on that gerbil wheel, hamster wheel, but you're still not getting anywhere.
oh, it's true. It's easy for it to come up. Sometimes we'll just reach a place where we've just it's almost like when you grow out of a pair of shoes. You've just outgrown where you are. And yet it's not clear enough yet what the next step is. And that's really a common experience, especially when I tend to work with people who have a kind of a driving ambition or ambitions. And so when you have that tendency, you are constantly evolving and growing, but sometimes the path's not crystal clear. It's kind of like a fork in the road. Or sometimes there isn't even a fork in the road. You just don't know really where it's going, or you don't know what is the next thing. It feels like you've been in one thing for a long time and you're ready for the next thing, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
waiting at a red light for a very long time. And and it just can feel like that. And then sometimes we think, well, it'll just shift, but it doesn't always shift because quite often there's a reason that ceiling has come forth. And that ceiling has come forth because it's a type of limiting belief or program from an early part of life that is showing up, and it's pretty strong. Sometimes we call them protective strategies, because like I said, they don't exactly show up and say, oh, by the way, I'm in a limiting belief. because otherwise they'd be really easy to work with. They show up as a strategy that we think is clever, which is why we buy into it. We think we're, I've got this figured out. I'm doing this particular thing, but it's just not really working. It's actually a way. It's kind of like when people decide, well, I'm not really that good at public speaking, so I'm not going to public speak. I'm going to do all these other things, but I'm not going to public speak. When they're that, it's apparent that there's some type of a belief there that is about public speaking when you could be adding public speaking to your portfolio of additional resources, right?
And is that why, I mean, you focus on the neurology? I mean, because you're not just trying to change habits. I mean, you're trying to do some rewiring up there. Is that what the part of that is?
Yes, I focus on the science-based part of it because it's science-based. It's like when you add 1 + 1 = 2 every single time. So when you use the science-based approach and you understand this really works, it's like consistently I'll be able to work with this process in this particular way. And this is what I mean. Like, I want people to be able to continue to grow and evolve and live the life the way they want to live their life, type of thing. And they will have the tools to be able to embrace, see obstacles as bridges, not
So
just.
is that why when you do the initial call, based on that, you're able to help guide people maybe which program they should be doing with you, and then I guess is it a weekly thing? Is it a daily thing? How often do you touch these folks when you're doing your training?
Well, typically we touch base more often at the beginning. Like, typically we touch base more often, usually once a week, but sometimes people will come with something that is a little bit more time pressing, or maybe has a stronger sense of urgency to it. And then we will work with that more often than once a week, until there's a point where they want to come once a week and then every second week. And that's how they move forward through the program. But initially we do more because there's more things to learn, more things to practice, and they've got, things that they're, working on, type of thing. So they are working that. After that, they say, oh yes, so I've implemented this, or I've done this. And, they're more in the groove of it. At first they're kind of learning the groove, and so we check in more often till they
I,
get it.
I would imagine that the mojo and the juice start to kick in as you're getting them where they're going. I would imagine that's when it gets exciting for these folks, right? Because at first it's probably not, it's like, oh, what is she going to do to me? Right? And then they see results and they start getting excited.
Well, first of all, it's a work with process. I don't do two. So we work together. And I think sometimes, I would say the majority of time, I would say it's fair to say people are a bit surprised because they've likely been working with something for a little while, and they've been putting a lot of effort into it and not seeing as many results. Whereas once they start working with, the mindset part of it, they can actually see the difference, and they often are really quite surprised.
Yeah.
And they will tell me that. They say, I can't believe this, Luanne. I've done this for however long. And people often tell me, I wish I had known this 20 years earlier.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.